We're back here on Live Impact News. We're going to dive a little deeper into the life and death of Dolly Parton. It's breaking news today here just in the last hour or so. Dolly Parton has passed away at the age of 80 years old. Now, it is August 25th. On August 21st, she released a statement speaking about some issues that she was having with her health. This is just 4 days ago. But within that statement even, there was optimism from Dolly Parton. She acknowledged how difficult things had been since her husband died in March of last year. But again, Dolly Parton was someone who was sort of ever optimistic, right? And every time you saw her in public life, a smile, a trademark smile, a trademark look, and someone who seemed to just have energy and love for life and the people who she lived it with. So to hear of her passing is difficult news to take in and difficult to imagine for someone who is so intensely full of life. Now, more on Dolly Parton. She was born in a very small community in the mountains in Tennessee. She was born with 11 siblings and into a situation that was very much impoverished. She worked her way up from there to become one of the most successful country music artists of all time. Admired as an entertainer, not just when it comes to music, but movies, television, songwriting. An incredible songwriter who has put pen to paper to create some of the most indelible hits in the history of America, including, of course, I Will Always Love You, which was a big hit when Dolly Parton created the song and then became one of the biggest hits of all time when Whitney Houston covered it in 1992 for the movie The Bodyguard. Now, we are actually going to welcome a special guest in joining us here today. Don Lemon from Audacy is going to take some time to be with us to speak about Dolly Parton, her impact on music, and her passing. Don, this may be the most short-noticed interview that we have ever set up. I can't tell you how much we appreciate how quickly you were able to join us here in what is sad news, but what is certainly a life to be admired and celebrated. Your first thoughts when you heard of the passing of Dolly Parton?
You know, I knew she was not healthy recently, and thank goodness it wasn't for a very long time. We hate to see her pass, but she wasn't down for long, and that's a great way to go if you can pull that off. She was, like you said, a guiding light in music and movies in our society. Um, yeah, I was sad to hear that. She lost her husband a while back, which must have been incredibly traumatic, but she was always so upbeat. And, you always saw that happy, smiling face. She never had a bad word to say about anybody. She was an amazing, like you said, writer, um, music artist, and movie star. That's a tough combination to pull off, and not a lot of stars have done that. And, it's unfortunate. She's kind of part of that generation too, where you're seeing less and less of these multimedia global superstars across multi-platforms. And it's a tough combination. She was a real talent and a wonderful human being. She moved to Nashville right after high school. She was in the public eye for 6 decades and relevant over all 6 decades. She had some really huge crossover hits and was a country music superstar. Amazing.
And you sort of mentioned the modern disintegration of monoculture, right? Dolly Parton was certainly someone who everybody knew and everybody was aware of. Even if you didn't really listen to country music, even if you didn't really, buy her albums, you were aware of her as an impactful presence in American culture. I want to start with the persona, a very unique persona, both in terms of her look, her style, how she presented herself to the public. How would you describe that sort of uniquely curated persona of Dolly Parton?
I've been an observer and a fan of hers for a long time. I never had the pleasure to meet her, but she never took herself too seriously. She was the gal next door. She was fun. She was more energetic or a little more playful than the person next to her. And I thought that really kept her down to earth, kept her extremely relatable. Um, she wanted to give back to the community, and she did through the Dollywood Foundation, but never thought she was more important or better than the next person. Her writing ability was incredible, but I just thought, she was so relatable, so fun. The cast that she was on in with 9 to 5 was amazing, and just truly a real talent across so many platforms and had so many great qualities. She gave back. That might have been, you referred to her upbringing. That might have been why she chose to put together the Dollywood Foundation and Dollywood. Really amazing. Not everyone with money gives money, and not everyone with real celebrity and influence over the public uses that in a constructive fashion. She was a great one.
You mentioned the Dollywood Foundation, education support by providing scholarships and financial assistance to those in need. She also had her Dolly Parton Imagination Library, which provided nearly 308 million books for free to children in the United States, the UK, Ireland, Canada, and Australia. So certainly giving back throughout the course of her time as a public figure, and someone who was an incredibly savvy business person based on some of the reporting from ABC News here, owned a number of her own publishing catalog, or owned large parts of her own publishing catalog at a time where maybe that was not nearly as in vogue or understood. The Dollywood theme park, which was very successful, entertainment holdings under the Dollywood Company. I mean, someone who really was kind of a mogul before that word was truly in fashion. I want to ask, when it comes to her creative output, is there one thing that stands out to you as sort of the defining aspect of her creativity, of her music, movie, and television success?
I think it's she made it look easy. She made it look easy to sing 9 to 5 or Islands in the Stream. She made it look easy to write I Will Always Love You. She made it easy to be on TV and movies, but nothing could be further from the truth. That kind of thing always kind of magically comes together, but that's not how it really is. It's hard work, it's a real gift, it's talent, it's falling down and getting back up. But she really had it all, and you mentioned her business holdings and decisions and her being a mogul. She did break through that glass ceiling early on in her field. She held her ground. She was strong, but she wasn't nasty. She wasn't mean. She was a nice person. She did it with class and finesse and with brains and kept it real by being so down to earth all the time.
Yeah, that class combined with sort of that indelible charisma, such a unique, such a unique way to move through public life, right? And you never know when it comes to celebrities what may be going on behind the scenes, but in front of the camera, at least Dolly Parton, as you said, always sort of that beacon for positivity as far as we know. One of 17 people to be inducted into both the Country Music Hall of Fame and the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, as well as the Songwriters Hall of Fame. When it comes to Dolly Parton's place within the country music lexicon, how influential of an artist was she on what we see as sort of one of the pillars of modern popular American art today?
I think she's a legend. She'll always be known as a legend. Her legacy will be one of the pioneers, one of the early greats that really helped make country music and the format, the genre, what it is today, and it is very big. She opened the doors for Faith Hill. She opened the doors for so many really gifted talents and so many women in particular, men as well. Um, she was a household name. And if you didn't know Kenny Rogers at the time Islands in the Stream came out, everybody knew Kenny Rogers when he partnered with her, and everyone knew her when she partnered with him. And she always spoke very highly of Kenny Rogers in the media. Um, it's impressive. It's hard to be the first. It's hard to be great for that long. It's hard to continue to turn the corner decade after decade. And like I said, she made it look easy. She was a television host. She was a television guest, a philanthropist. I mean, so impressive. She didn't have to do the things she did. She did them because she wanted to, and she was very good at it.
And you speak about the giving back, right? And you speak about that philanthropy. We'll include here wildfires in 2016 really impacted Eastern Tennessee. Dolly Parton, of course, from Tennessee. She created a fund that gave $1,000 a month for 6 months to 900 families affected by those fires. And it just seems like as we look through her resume, those music hits keep coming, but almost not nearly as fast as the various charities that she dedicated herself to and people that she tried to help. I want to go back to the music, though. When it comes to music styling, to the genre that she sort of helped create, the style of her music and her songwriting, is there anything that stands out in terms of her output when it comes to creating songs, writing songs, and then her presentation of those songs that she'll take as a part of her music legacy for someone whose personal legacy is obviously so great?
I think, her lyrics, her writing connected with people, and then her singing connected with people. She did not write Islands in the Stream, but she presented it so people could relate to it and hear it and connect. And I Will Always Love You, obviously that connected in the biggest way possible. And an incredible talent like Whitney Houston made it a number one hit across many, many formats. And it's been a big song for 40 years now or so. She connected with people. The whole notion of women working 9 to 5 and women in the working world and wearing multiple hats. People can relate to that. Women can relate to that, and she put it in a real place. And her fashion choice. You could say she was an early Lady Gaga or an early Madonna. She wasn't afraid to dress the way she wanted to, and nobody had been doing it like she did publicly and in the music business. And she did it her way and did it with class and finesse, and she made it fun. Um, she never took herself too seriously. And with her philanthropy, it might have been called Dollywood, but people didn't always know what she was doing. She did it because it was the right thing to do and because she could make a difference. She did not always sign her name to her work. And that's pretty amazing, pretty impressive.
And that, the way you describe that is she's one of those rare people who's able to give others permission almost to be themselves, or comfort maybe to be themselves, whether it's artists like you said, such as Madonna, that followed in her footsteps, or just people who listened to her music who needed that extra encouragement or that extra push to see someone who was so totally and completely themselves, comfortable in their own skin, breaking down those barriers you mentioned, especially for women at the time. It's a rare thing to be able to touch people like that, and possibly even more rare to be able to create a song like I Will Always Love You that generation after generation is able to touch people. I mean, that is just a talent that is really kind of beyond recognition for us who don't create music, to be able to make a song that kind of pierces through humanity and is just totally and completely timeless. So you make some great points there, and a real thorough sort of memorial from you here, Don, about not just who she was as a person and a performer as well, but the impact she had on other people. We really appreciate you coming on and spending some time with us here. Is there anything else that you want to add that maybe I didn't ask or that's important to include?
I appreciate you having me. Thank you so much. And I'm happy to help anytime. And you guys are terrific. You all have a great team there. I think the key takeaway from Dolly is it's okay to be yourself. And not only was she a pioneer in the country music world, but she made it okay to be okay. And she kind of said it's okay to be me. And that took incredible strength at that time in history, at that time in our country. And it's tough. It's real tough when you're a little bit different, or you talk different, or you look different, or you act different. It takes unbelievable grit and courage. And we should all learn from that. And we should all be so fortunate and perhaps borrow a little bit of that courage that can take us all a long way.
Well, very well said, Don. We appreciate you being with us here today, and hopefully we'll catch up down the road.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me. Have a great afternoon.
Absolutely, you too. And again, that's Don Lemon from Audacy taking some time here to be with us and discuss the life of Dolly Parton here as just a couple of hours ago we got that tragic, that difficult, that very sorrowful breaking news that Dolly Parton has passed away at the age of 80. And it is shocking to think of someone who so fully embodied the exuberance that life can bring in its best moments each and every time that she was in front of a camera. To think of that person having passed away leads you obviously to a great deal of sorrow, but also that push to celebrate her life. And again, that most important thing maybe perhaps that she instilled in those who watched her and listened to her and followed her is that it is okay to be yourself, and even the encouragement to be yourself. And especially if yourself is a little different or a little outside of the norm, the comfort that each and every person who followed Dolly Parton perhaps could tap into with being themselves is really as influential as it gets when it comes to a public figure. The drive to be yourself each and every day is one of the greater tasks that we can take on as people. Dolly Parton, one of those rare individuals who was able to provide an extra push in that never-ending quest to truly be yourself and be comfortable in your own skin. So her impact will not be forgotten anytime soon as she passes on today, again, at the age of 80 years old. 17 people have been inducted into both the Country Music Hall of Fame and the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Dolly Parton is one of those artists, but it's a far smaller number that have been into the country, the rock and roll, and the Songwriters Hall of Fame. Dolly Parton stands tall in that group. Those three very distinct skills that she was able to embody. And again, I Will Always Love You is quite simply one of the biggest hits of all time. Now, it's that 1992 cover by Whitney Houston that really broke through to become a true, national #1 hit here. But those were Dolly Parton's words that she wrote, and Whitney Houston sang them so beautifully and so powerfully. And the combination of those two brilliant creatives coming together to create a song that will play for centuries, and that when it plays, no matter if it's 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, or 100 years after it was written and created, it will touch people. And that is something that is genuinely rare, and it's something that Dolly Parton had the talent to create, but not just the talent, but the humanity to be able to create something like that. So a truly sad day in the music industry, the country music industry, pop culture in general, and here in the United States, as Dolly Parton has passed on at the age of 80. In 2024, Billboard magazine had Dolly Parton as #1 on their list of the 100 greatest country artists of all time. As you move through her resume beyond the music, she's one of the great people of all time too, based on every piece of reporting that we can find about Dolly Parton. So rest in peace to Dolly Parton. We're going to take another break here on Live Impact News. We'll be back with more right after this.